Good afternoon. Welcome to our Tachjian Museum. My name is Maggie Mangasarian Goshen. We're very delighted to have a very special guest today, all the way from Germany, Vahe Tachjian, who will be enlightening us about our ancestors and about the Herculean work that he does through Houshamadyan organization. Before we begin our program, I just want to bring to your attention that there are a lot of flyers outside for upcoming events. So if you're interested, please take one. If you'd like to be on our email list or the Nasser group, please do so. You can sign in, and then we will provide you information about upcoming events. There is an event tomorrow. It's not a special event for the public, but it's for students who are coming from colleges. So I need to have a speaker. So Haraj Gözibörükyan volunteered to be our speaker tomorrow. He'll be talking about Armenian rugs, and he's going to bring special rugs for display. So if you're interested, it's at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, and it's open to the public. As well as my friend Aspet will be talking at the ARPA Institute about the Ethiopia. I'm sorry, Aspet, I couldn't organize it because I'm running out of space and time. So ARPA is doing this week. If you're interested, there are flyers. It's on Thursday. There is an event in April at the Glendale Library that California State University Northridge is sponsoring with Haigazian College. That's at the Glendale Library. And then we have 3 events in April in the museum. So please help yourself. And then if you have any questions, you can see me or Nasser Group. Also, I want to thank Nasser, the students from CSUN, if they're here for the event. Thank you for your support. And thank you, Vahram, for encouraging your students. I also want to thank the organization who are collaborating with us, which is Nasser, the North Serund, and Mr. and Mrs. Babian. Just brief information about Vahe. I'm going to give all this information now, and then we will begin the program. Just very briefly, the Houshamadyan was established in 2011 in Berlin. It's a nonprofit association. The aim of the Houshamadyan project and the website is to reconstruct the daily lives of the Ottoman Armenians and their social environment in all its facets, to bring back to life the cities, towns, and villages in which Armenians lived in the Ottoman Empire by reconstructing their inheritance, the rich memory of the local Armenians. This is a work that Vahe has started on his own with a very small team. It takes tedious work and effort. I've been working here for 20 years as a volunteer, and I know what it takes to amass information, collect information, and mine is minuscule to what Vahe does. The work that he does takes a lot of efforts, translation, teamwork. At the bottom line is the dollar sign. If you don't have the funding, you're not able to do it. And the work that he does is tremendous. So any of you would like to help the Houshamadyan project, please see me or Vahe. We do have information available. You can make your 501c tax deductible donation directly to Houshamadyan, or you can make to our Tachjian Museum, and we will forward to Vahe, or you can talk to him. Please, please, it is vitally important. This is viral on the website, all his information, and it's tedious work. And it's coming out of Germany, not from Los Angeles, not from Glendale, but from Berlin. So we have to encourage him. Before we bring Vahe to the podium, we do have to bring us in the mood of the Armenian history and the Western Armenia, or our ancestors. We have 2 young graduates, undergraduate students from UCLA, who will be entertaining us with 2 pieces of information on canon songs. The first song is Drabizon, and the second one is Elegia. I'm sorry, I wrote it 100 times and I forgot. So Alexandria and Lilia will be entertaining us 2 songs on canon. Thank you, and afterwards Vahe will be following us. Thank you.
very much for this wonderful performance. And yeah, first thank you for this wonderful, you're hearing, yeah? For this wonderful invitation, and it is every time a pleasure to work with Maggie. Every time when I come here, I discover new materials, historical materials that are hidden in this museum, just downstairs. And each time what is very important for us as scholars, these materials, historical materials, are available. And this is, I think, thanks to Maggie and her efforts. Thank you, Maggie. Some years ago, a person talking about Houshamadyan project, the website, recalled a novel published in Yerevan, in Armenia in 1985 by an Armenian novelist, Noray Radalyan. And he made a parallel between the novel and the Houshamadyan project. Perhaps some of you know this text. It's called Kabuyt Yerzengan, the Blue Yerzenga. And it is about a Yerzenga, or present-day Erzincan-born couple, Pavestos and his wife Ashkhen. They are old, and at that time they were living in Soviet Armenia. And Pavestos, for decades, had tried to prepare on paper the layout, the map, the plan of the city, of his native city of Yerzenga. Pavestos was a retired baker. His father was also a baker. He has only a basic education in Armenian school in Yerzenga, but his efforts to restore the map of Yerzenga was something that in modern time we will call it the use of visual representations as a method of memory restoration. His efforts consisted to restore the memory of the Armenian Yerzenga, of course, the one that was erased even at that time in the starting 1920s. It was erased physically by the Kemalist regime in Turkey from the city map. So he was trying to reconstruct these Armenian venues, Armenian places, like the Central Armenian School, the house of Dermesrop Torosyan, the priest of Yerzenga at that time, the market where Pavestos, as a child, was buying his leblebu from Greek or Armenian merchants, Surpergit Church, the fountain located in the garden of the Mamigonian brothers, and according to Pavestos, that was the fountain which had the best water of the whole Yerzenga. The Serpon Bat near the church, the house of the tightrope walker Ghazaros, the courtyard between the Surp Sarkis and Surp Yerotuchen churches, where all the children, Armenian children of Yerzenga, and among others Pavestos himself, were playing. So he had dedicated many years to achieve this goal, to prepare the plan of the city, and he was never satisfied with his work. And during all this time, which is also very interesting in the novel, his wife, Ashkhen, was playing a central role. He was giving the memory tips, he was giving advices about the Armenian places of the city. And at the end of the novel, I'm summarizing it, Pavestos is convinced that the map is finally achieved. Then there is a strong dispute between man and wife over where to hang the map, in the bedroom or in the living room. However, before going to bed, they are again reconciled and satisfied with this lifelong achievement. And in the morning, the neighbor found them lying in the bed, sticking their heads together. They were dead, but their dream to recreate the map was achieved. I think there are many such examples taken this time from real life, from the life of post-genocide first generation of Armenians living both in the diaspora and in Soviet Armenia at that time. I will show you just a couple of examples of this kind of dedication. Here is something that some of you had already seen this. Yes. So this is something prepared by Hovannes Algemian. It's a genealogy wheels. These ones are genealogy wheels from different families in from the village of Hazari, which is in Chemishkazak, in present-day Dersim. And there are also other informations about the plan of the village, the plan, the layout of the church, of the school, different information about the history of the village Hazari, the families, the name of the families, the crafts existing in that village, etc., etc. So this one was never published for different reasons, and there is another one. This time, this is a published one. This is the layout of the village of Parchanch in Harpert. It was prepared by Manuk Zeron, a villager from that part of Harpert. And here you can see the Armenian neighborhood. It was a mixed village, Turkish and Armenian. So here he drawn all the Armenian family houses, but also the churches, the school, etc. And another one is taken from Urfa, again a published one. You can see the Armenian neighborhood of Urfa, the city. And what is interesting that all these layouts that you can see here, like Pavestos himself, they were prepared based on their memory of the first generation of Armenians. So we should recall that until the 1950s, it was still very much forbidden for the first generation of Armenians to travel to Turkey. So the rules started to be eased in the 1950s, but until then it was impossible to them to visit their native places. And so when they prepared this kind of maps, so all it was based on their memory. Yes. I think that when we explore closer, we will see that in every Armenian family, there has been at least one member, one just a weird member of the family, like Pavestos and all the others, one relative who dedicated himself, herself, in such endeavors. Who is going to write our history? That was the existential question that was alarming them. For the first generation of Armenians during a time when Turkish state denialism already existed. That was a time when international indifference and neglect towards their situation were evident in its various forms. And they were convinced that the coming generations would be unable to reconstruct the memory of their native land in a genuinely comprehensive manner. They felt the need to immortalize this legacy of the past, this town or village of another time, and they felt the need to react to the enormous injustice that they experienced by putting pen to paper and writing eyewitness accounts. Such dedication, such determination reminds me another story. This is taken from Jewish Holocaust. The story of Emanuel Ringelblum. This is the man who headed a clandestine organization during the Warsaw occupation by the Nazi regime at that time. So the objective of that organization was to document all facets of Jewish life within Poland, all the violences, to take account of all the violences, to write them, to document them, and to compile an archive that would preserve the history for posterity. Oneg Shabbat was the name of that organization, and fortunately, after the Second World War, of course, the ghetto Warsaw, where Ringelblum and his organization operated, the whole ghetto was destroyed by the Nazi regime. But after the Second World War, they founded some boxes containing these documents, and And really, for historians, for scholars, that was something very, very important. And it shed light on the real life of the Warsaw Ghetto from the perspective of the victims, from the perspective of the Jewish inhabitants. I think that the efforts of the Armenian survivors during post-genocide times to write their personal memoirs or to document their collective life in their native towns, villages, had the same common objective: to tell to the world how they lived, to raise their voice and to present their own account rather than to leave the field open to others, denialists or soft denialist historians, scholars, to speak in their name. The result was the publication of hundreds of books on history, social life of Armenian inhabited villages. This map, for example, of Urfa is taken from a book published in the 1950s in Lebanon by the Urfa Compatriot Union, when you can find many, many information about life in Urfa, Armenian life in Urfa at that time, before 1915, and many other books. And I don't think that it will be exaggerated to say that there are numerous equivalents of Emanuel Ringelblum and his group members within the first generation of Armenians. Of course, you will say that the conditions were different. The Armenians were living in the diaspora, but we know how it was difficult at that time to print a book. To print a book, to prepare a book, to publish it later, to collect all the information. And we should not forget that among or within this first generation of Armenians, there were fewer intellectuals because, as we know, in 1915, most of the intellectuals, Ottoman Armenian intellectuals, were killed. So in these conditions, those who took pen in exile to write their local history were in many cases persons without having a higher education, like Pavestos, as we have seen in the novel, but determined to leave an account of their life, to tell the future generations how they lived. Some succeeded to publish their books, their manuscripts, but some others never succeeded to publish or to print their manuscript as a book, and this kind of manuscript stayed in family closets or in present-day libraries, library archives, or institutional archives. Excuse me. Yes, the project Houshamadyan, and now I will talk about the website, was also born from this simple and powerful idea. Bring back to life the cities, towns, and villages in which Armenians lived in the Ottoman Empire through articles, photos, maps, films, drawings, songs, etc. Times have changed. In modern times, the new technologies allows us to use various multimedia tools in order to reconstruct a past life, to present a history, to revive the local environment, the local ambience. And internet can transform the memory of a place into something vivid and accessible to the public. In this case, in the case of Houshamadyan, our main sources remain this genre of books published by the first generation of Armenians, Houshamadyan genre of books, or they called it Tishadagaran, or other names. So this extraordinary production made by the first generation of Armenians of books telling the story of the history of their villages or towns. However, it's still sensitive, a delicate task to reconstruct a memory of a past collective life based on sources like the books written by the first generation of Armenians, whose language, the language of these books, is a combination of sentimentality, subjectivity, and frustration, given all the grievances that experienced in their life, and at the top of them, the genocide. And the concept of Houshamadyan is, of the website, I mean, is to evade to adopt this kind of paradigm or this kind of language. The articles should be read in 3 different languages: Armenian, English, and Turkish, without provoking the readers, despite her or his nationality or ideological affiliation. But believe me, this is a very difficult task, mainly where our ambition as a website is to become a popular website, visited not only by academics, but also by people from various category, especially, as if we should define their nationalities, Armenians, Turks, and Kurds. So the question could be raised here. Is that the way the first generation of Armenians or the first authors of Houshamadyan books wish to see the presentation of their history? The answer is not very clear for me. I'm not sure of my answer. However, the only thing that I can say as a director of this kind of website, I'm sure that this memory, the memory of Ottoman Armenians, is written now from our own perspective. You can call it post-memory, you can call it trans-memory, but now it is written by representatives of a new generation. There is a very interesting episode in one of the books written by Marianne Hirsch. It's about, the book is about the Jewish life in Chernovitz. Chernovitz was a town now in present-day Ukraine, that it was inhabited by thousands of Jews at that time until the Second World War. And before the publication of the book, the authors, there is two authors, present the book to one of the main oral witness of the book. So this person evidently, after reading the manuscript, did not agree with all the analyses that were presented in the manuscript. But he said something very interesting, and I will quote it. You are telling the story as you see it. It would not write, I would not write it this way, of course, but it's your story now. Yes, it is our story. This is our story. Now, in combination with our professional and academic experiences, and of course with internet technology, we are building something new, something that is more accessible and more attractive to all. And from the first day, we wanted to transform the website into a collaborative space where people from different national backgrounds will be able to participate to our efforts to reconstruct a mutual memory, a mutual heritage. So after this long introduction, I want to present the website itself. We will make a visit together to into the website. And the first thing that I want to say, because I was here some 4 years ago, and I presented again Houshamadyan here in this same room. And the first thing that I want to say that we grew up. So I will present just very in short description our team. So this is the Houshamadyan team, which is much more a network than a team working in the same place. We are in different places. We are in Berlin, in Brussels, in Los Angeles, in Yerevan, in Istanbul, in Brussels, as I said, yes, in Paris. So this is our team. And what is new in our organization, we have now a branch in the United States, a nonprofit organization working within the United States in Michigan. And so these are our translators and our authors. So this is our team. And just a few words about the production, because that was 4 years ago when I was here. I also presented how many articles we were publishing at that time. As we grew up now in the last 3 years, I can say that in every year we are publishing an average of 40 to 50 articles. That means an average of around 4 articles per month. Some 25 geographical places are covered in our website. and we have an average of about 400 visitors in our website. And to visit or to navigate in the website, the first thing I would like to say is there are 3 sections in the website. The first one is concern the geographical division of the empire. That means for every Armenian inhabited places, we have different articles about different subjects. So I will talk first about this section, this first section, which is the main section, and we started with this section. And one of the way to visit or to select an article is the homepage. You can see here different icons. You can choose one of them, and you can read the article. But here, this is only a selection of articles, and if you want to have the general picture of the articles, it's better to go to maps. And in maps, as you can see, it's the map of the Ottoman Empire with the different provinces, the vilayets of the Ottoman Empire. You can choose a place, let's say the vilayet of Kharpert. And in Kharpert, you will see here that we have 4 geographical places that are already covered: Dersim, Kharpert, Agan, and Arabkir. Let's say that we want to have articles on Agan. Here is Agan, and you have the map of the district or the sub-district of Agan. And in Agan, you have articles about religion. On religion, there we have articles on churches and religious customs, and in local characteristics, we have articles about cuisine and attire. Just to show this article, attire, here is an article about attire, the traditional clothes in Agan. The page is prepared in cooperation with Project SAVE, given the fact that they sent to us some 4 or 5 very beautiful pictures of Agan Armenians. So here is the article, the text, and the pictures. And oh. Okay. I have a solution. It's too short. Yeah, here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I will show the article with the different pictures. And here, yeah, just I wanted to show this picture, which is taken from here, from Ararat Eskija Museum. And this wedding dress is, I think, in your museum, yeah? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we can visit another place. If you have any preferences for Armenian inhabited places, you can just suggest your... So, one Hajan, and how many Hajan? Hajan? Sebastia, okay. Yozgat. How many Hajan? How many Hajan you have? Just one? Okay, Hajan at just one supporter. And Erzurum? We don't have until now Artikzan Erzurum. Maraş, okay. Let's see Maraş. Yeah. To visit, in order to visit the Maraş articles, or to see the Maraş articles, we should go to the Vilayet of Aleppo, the province of Aleppo. And here you can see the map of the Vilayet, of the province, and Maraş is here. And this is the map of the Sanjak of Maraş, of the district of Maraş. And we have many articles on this place. Yeah, and here you can see that the page are sponsored by a donor. Yes, what do you want to hear about Maraş, or to read about Maraş? Voices. Okay. Yeah. So it's not really an article. I mean, it's about a testimony. It's about the life of Hovhannes Cherishyan, who was from Maraş, and there is music. There is stories telling that he told about his life in Maraş, and it was written by his granddaughter. This article, Nora Leserson. And yes, it's okay. So my idea was to start the songs later, but we can manage it now. Where was it? Sorry. This is Kun Yerit Balas in the Maraş version.
Açkıt kupara orororim balas orororim nami im siragane kunegdani im alvoriges kunegdani.
So this is how to visit the different articles by using the map. But there is another way to visit these geographical places. For example, somebody is not interested in a particular place, but interested in a general theme, in a general subject. Let's say, for example, churches in the Ottoman Empire, Armenian churches in the Ottoman Empire. So for this reason, you can go to Thames. And in Thames, sorry. There's a problem with the connection or internet. Okay. Do you have internet here?
Change which Wi-Fi are you connected to?
I don't know, guessed.
Go to the admin. Admin. Connect to the admin one. This one.
Admin, yeah.
And this is the password.
Just a second.
And then 333 and a capital I. Lowercase o.
Capital I.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Again, resolved. Wow, this is amazing today. So, so the other way is to go to Teams and no. And here you can see on this side of the website different subjects. For example, local economy, religion. You can click on religion, and you can see that there are many subjects, sub-themes like missionaries, churches, festivals, religious customs. And you can choose one of them for, if you want to have articles on churches. And this is the articles, all the articles about churches gathered together, put together. Churches in Curry, churches in Van. We have many articles on Van because the article was very long, so we divided to different parts. So Casa of Van, another one on Van, Van Dosp, Timar, Van Arjak, Van Hayotzor, churches in Mush, churches in Malazgert, churches in Agen, in Sassoon, Bulanek, Urfa, Hajan, Dortiol, Marash, Musaler, Sis. So you click on one of them and you will have the article on the churches on that particular place. Or if somebody is interested in cuisine, in food, so you click on local characteristics and you will have an article on cuisine, cuisine in Sassoon, in Harpert, in Aintab, in Urfa, in Agen, Marash, Musaler, Palu, Zeytun, Arabkir. Let's open the one on Arabkir. This is the Arabkir foods article. You have introduction, pictures from Arabkir, and then all the recipes. Yeah, it's some 40 or 50 recipes from Arabkir. So this is the first section. The other section, which is relatively new, and it is called Open Digital Archive. And so just this one, ODA, Open Digital Archive. So it was opened a couple of years ago, some 3 years ago. And when we started to receive many collections from different families. I mean, people started to send us objects or pictures from their own families. They sent them through email sometimes, or they sent them when we met them in different, during our visit to different communities. And so we started to have a very important family collection, a digital collection in our association. So that was a challenge, how to use these documents, these precious treasures, these precious documents, these pictures, how to make them accessible to all of us. So we created this one, this Open Digital Archive, and here we started to display all the family collections. For example, you can open Americas, and here you can see different family collections from Canada, from United States, from Argentina, from Brazil, and yes, for example, I can open one of them. Let's say the one on Houshamadyan, which is a very important photographic collection. The family was originated from Agen. Then parts of family members went to Harpert. Another part went to Manchester. Again, the same wedding dress. and from the Manchester, other members of the family arrived to Glendale in the 1910s. So I think they were one of the first Armenian inhabitants of Glendale at that time. So this is a very important family collection. And of course, you can see at the beginning the microhistory of the family. All information available about that family. Names, professions, craft, trades, if they were in school, in which school, and what was the itinerary of the family after the genocide, or if they left the Ottoman Empire before that, where they went, etc. All this information are available in the microhistory of the family. So this one is about this family. So there are many other families from the United States that already have their family collection in this part, in this section of our website. Another one is from Aintab, Güzelimian family. Here are the 4 beautiful Güzelim brothers. Yes, and this family was from Aintab. Then some members went to Egypt, and from Egypt to Canada and United States. So again, yes, there are diplomas from Aintab, one of the Güzelimian brothers as an Ottoman soldier during the First World War. So this is the Oda section. There is another section in our website, but this time I will not speak. I will give the floor to Simon Böcekyan, who is our main translator of our articles from Armenian to English. And he will talk about this new section, which is called Voices. And it is very new. We opened it just in January. And we have now only one article, and we hope that in the near future we will have many others, not only memoirs. This one is memoirs, but I will give the floor to Simon, and he will speak of it. I will come back. Yes, of course.
All right. So like Vahe said, I translate a lot of these articles to English. And a lot of times what we do is, again, like Vahe said, it's kind of a compendium of information. So there's information from different sources that the authors put together, and they give it to us, and then we translate as well. So this section, the Voices section, is quite different, mainly because it's only going to have primary sources. And unlike all the other articles on Houshamadyan, these articles are going to be probably much longer, and they're going to go into much more detail about the experiences of specific individuals, or even specific communities, depending on what we have. So just as an example, the first one we have is the Memoirs of Armen Dadyan. So he actually, so this is quite an extensive manuscript. I believe it was 40 pages, something like that, the memoir. And there's an editor's preface as well. So he was an Armenian who was conscripted into the Ottoman army during World War I and actually served in the Battle of the Dardanelles in Gallipoli. And his family was actually deported while he was serving in the army. And he ended up actually absconding and escaping to Bulgaria. So basically this is his history as he tells it, without any additional information given by authors or editors, and without any sources. Obviously, it's just his story. And you can navigate it with the sections here. This is just the first section, which is the preface, basically. And then you can go section by section and read the different chapters. But I think what's really important about having this kind of manuscript on the website is that it goes into a lot more detail, and it actually provides readers with a much more human view of the events, rather than kind of the more academic, the more scholarly articles that we have, which basically just relay information. These are basically memoirs. A lot of them would probably be published separately if they weren't on this website. They could be considered books, basically, about these people's experiences and these families' experiences. Like Vahe said, it's a very new section of our website. So far, we only have this one article, although we also have other articles coming up. So some of our plans are, so the next thing that's going to be published in this section is probably going to be an excerpt from Malchas's Zartunk novel, which focuses on the area of Dersim, which is probably one of the more interesting areas in the Ottoman Empire in the late 19th century, early 20th century. And aside from that, we also have an unpublished article that's going to be published in the Voices section, and it's going to focus on the Hoshmat village of Palu province specifically. So basically, just as an overview, I think that the academic scholarly articles that we have, combined with memoirs and journals and diaries like this, basically together really achieve the mission of the website or of the organization, which is to reconstruct the life of Ottoman Armenians as they lived before the genocide. And I mean, these can be used both as primary sources by academics and scholars, and as well as basically anybody can go read them to find out more about where their ancestors came from, and also just more universally, just the history of the Armenian people during that era. And like Vahe said, there's very little subjectivity in the rest of the website. The articles are written to avoid subjectivity, and this section obviously is going to have a lot more of the human, personal, subjective touch, and kind of flesh out the history as we know it. But that's all I wanted to say about this section. I encourage you all to obviously read it, and yeah, thank you very much. I'll give the floor back to Vahe.
So this is the advantage to work as a network, yeah. And so I'm here. I'm just calling Simon to come and to take the floor, and he's agreeing. And last time I was in Istanbul, it was in December, and there I gave the floor to one of our translators, Arlet İnci Düzen. And yeah, she talked about the Turkish translation, and she talked also, because she's also responsible of exchange of letters with our Turkish visitors of the website, because we receive a great number of messages, letters from our Turkish visitors, and she's the responsible of that exchange of letters. She is replying to the emails or the Facebook messages, and she talked about that experience. And so I want to conclude with music, and yes, and 2 years ago, thanks to two donations, one from the LA and the other one from Lebanon, we started to realize, or to materialize, thank you, materialize a project that was in our mind for several years, and that was the digitization and the presentation of Bedros Alaoudayan collection. Bedros is here today, and I'm very happy for that. And so this part of by presentation, it was supposed to be done by Zovik Markarian. She is the responsible of that work. She is digitizing all the recordings, all the songs, preparing the scores of the songs, and also preparing the introduction, the biography of the singers. For health issues. Dovig is not with us today, but I'm sure that very soon she will join us and continue the work with us. Yeah. And so we started to digitize this very important song collection that Bedros for many, many years collected in by visiting different countries, different cities, Aleppo, Armenia, Belgium, France, United States. So this is a very important collection, and the digitization is one of the main or most important work that we are doing during these past 3 years. And we have already many songs digitized and presented, displayed on the website. Here are the local characteristics, and here, when you go to Song and Dance, you will find all the songs taken from Bedros Alaidoyan collection. For example, I want to show you the article on Van. Here, the singer is somebody who is born in Van, Yenov Kderhagopian, and yeah, you can find very beautiful songs here from Van, and I will display just one or two of them. And of course, it's sung with the local Van dialect. Vana Kahken Tursela.
Vanna kahken tursela vai le vai lo. Vanna kahken tursela vai le vai lo. Hayreni kiterata invorti sokakes. Hayreni kiterata invorti sokakes. Well,
okay, let's continue with another song.
Vatmi patsever vana kahki ekesta. Vatmi patsever vana kahki ekesta. Astvat sires me kodoki tujigatad. Astvat sires me kodoki tujigatad. Kahorotig kana zerov tuvidne. Kahorotig kana zerov tuvidne. Ashhar kiti alam kiti tu imanes. Ashhar kiti alam kiti tu imanes.
And just the last song. Are you time? We were talking about working as a network. So Simon is here, but I will present here a little bit spontaneously another way how we are working as a network. So this songs collection, it's a song, the singer is Harut Bartanian. He's from Ufa, and it's part also of Bedros Alaidoyan collection. As we're working on its publication, we didn't have any picture of the singer. So the singer is born in Syria. Originally, his parents are from Aleppo. He learned the songs of Urfa from his grandmother, but we didn't have any picture of him. So we started, we mobilized, let's say, our network, and finally we find his son. He's here today, and Harut Bartanyan. And thanks to the family, they send us many pictures of him. So you can see all the pictures of Harut Bartanyan. And perhaps these songs, these recordings are maybe all the only available recordings from Urfa, from songs originally from Urfa. So it was really a fascinating thing, something very passionate thing for us to work like a network and then to produce the result of our work to make it accessible to the public. And thanks to the family, thanks to Bedro's efforts, thanks to Zovik, so we materialized this page. Harut, is there any preference among the songs that you want to hear? And this one. Yeah.
Tachjian, elera panzer denera. Aman es peşlon Tachjian, elera panzer denera. Ugelela ugekhme, eçseras bazgavera. Ugelela ugekhme, eçseras bazgavera. Aman es peşlon Tachjian. Kallerem totun mekina, aman ezmiş Tachjian, kallerem totun mekina. Mushik, potem der varti pushik. Mushki kukas, mushik, potem der varti pushik. İmbazdık bagna nushik, aman espeş Tachjian. İmbazdık bagna nushik, aman espeş Tachjian. Aman espeş Tachjian. Kallerem totun mekina, aman ezmiş Tachjian, kallerem totun mekina.
I just want to finish with a positive note, and I will show a short film, a podcast, again prepared by our team. As we will continue with Urfa, and we have a podcast about Urfa. It's an animation film by using materials, old pictures from Urfa from the 1910s, 1920s sometimes, and again by using a song sung by the Usta Vartanian, Barbet Vartanian. So this is the animation film.
Hey, aman ez pişlonca çina Ellere pantır denera Aman ez pişlonca çina Ellere pantır denera Ugelela uge khale Echse razbat gamera Ugelela uge khale Echse razbat gamera Aman ez pişlonca çina Ellerim tutun mekina Aman ez pişlonca çina Ellerim tutun mekina
You going to take questions?
If there are any questions, yeah.
Wonderful story of the survivors and the memories of those who survived. That is going to be very important in our overall history. What about the follow-up as another project? The question of those who survived and are living today and could have a history of the last 100 years.
Sorry, I didn't get those who survived and are still living.
There's children of the survivors, you know, who prospered, went to different countries, such as America, Europe,
Yes.
like yourself, and then continued to produce and countries in which they became citizens.
Oh,
That would be a continuation and a much richer history to follow up from this beginning, which is a wonderful thing that is obviously the
Yes,
root
I get it,
and the basis.
Yeah, it's a very important question. Of course, it's a very important subject. It's the continuation, but yeah, we are limited to the Ottoman Armenian history until 1915. That could be another project, another big project, but yeah, let others do that.
Sorry. Yeah. You said that there is a lot of Hayri Naksagan Milyoner have published their books. Any plans to publish or to put the digitized version of these books on your website, like the history of Malatya, Sis, Daron, all these places?
At the beginning, we started that, but we have seen that again, it's not our job to digitize these books, because we have seen that some important libraries, for example, the National Library of Armenia, started a big digitization projects. Not these books, but they started with all Ottoman Armenian newspapers, the press, and certainly they will continue with the books too. So it was taking from us a big important resources. So it wasn't our goal to, or it wasn't among our goals to do that. So we prefer to stop. We digitized some 10 books, and we already put at that time on the website. But then we said that let's continue with the other, again, important subjects like the writing articles and collecting family collections. And the book digitization is something mechanical that also others can do it.
Vahe, I was really impressed. I visited your site 4 years ago, and there's so much more now here. You mentioned about Turks and Kurds visiting the site. Are there many? And if there are many, what's the reaction you get from Turks, Turkish, and the Kurdish people?
You know, when we started the Turkish translation, because at the start we didn't have, 4 years ago when I came here, at that time we didn't start the Turkish translation. And it's relatively new. It's founded by the Gulbenkian Foundation. And now all the articles, even the old articles that were already published on the website, were all translated into Turkish. And from that day, I can say that the biggest group of visitors are from Turkey for the website. Among these Turkish or visitors from Turkey, of course, many could be also Kurds or Muslim Armenians, but it's the biggest group now. And generally speaking, we receive positive reactions from the Turkish visitors. Sometimes very positive. We can also find excessive replies, but this kind of replies we find also from Armenians too.
Hi, I wanted to ask about the background of the project you're doing. You're trying to recreate the way of life of Ottoman Armenians. So, of course, you mentioned cuisine, dance, attire, and so on. But why stop there? Like, how about sexual relations between men and women, up to marriage and so on, and hierarchic relations? So, my question, is that also covered, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, again, a very important topic. You know, our main sources is the books published by the first generation of Armenians. This is our main sources. And it's difficult to find other Armenian sources about the life of the Armenians in the Ottoman Empire. Of course, you can find them. You can find in travelogue accounts of the 19th century, even there were Armenian travelogues or Armenians, a bishop who visited this or that village or town, city, and he took notes, he wrote reports, and you can find articles on the Armenian inhabited cities, villages in the Armenian press of the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century, beginning 20th century. But yeah, it's until now, we use mainly the published books, the Houshamadyan genre of books. Other kind of sources like the press or the unpublished letters, reports, sometimes we use it. It depends also from the author. If it's a hard working scholar, he can find them, he can use them. But yeah, in the published ones, in the Houshamadyan genre books, it's difficult to find this kind of topics discussed in the books. And so sometimes it's better to go to memoirs, to other sources like exchange of letters, and so but this kind of research, sometimes it's out of our domain, and because it's also we should produce, and we should not like a PhD thesis scholar wait some 4 or 5 years until an article is published, sometimes, and or a book is published. So we should produce articles every month, 2, 3, 4 articles every month, and sometimes it's not journalistic, it's academic, but sometimes it's not the way that, for example, I will write an article in a book or in a book chapter. It's sometimes, I'm not saying about all the articles, so this is the reason why sometimes we are not getting all the information available, and sometimes the information are available only in unpublished books or letters and this kind of unpublished texts.
But that what you are doing, Vahe, is bringing to life, I'm here, everything that could only be in our imagination before. And to respond to your question, the question before the last one, in returning to our parents' and grandparents' native homes and soil several times. Last year, I was in the flattened village of Bazmashen in Kharpert, which used to be a village of several hundred homes and is now literally flat land. And there was a shepherd there with his tall, handsome nephew, 16, 17 years old, who had come from the city of Mesre to help his uncle shepherd the sheep. And I started talking to him. His name is Ahmed. And I said, do you know what this is? And he says, as you know, most of the names of the villages and towns and cities have been changed. And that village today is Sari Chubuk. And he said, this is Bazmachen. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, because I read. And I said, what have you read? And he said, I read that this used to all be Armenian. And he continued to tell me about the history of our people and of the experiences of that land. And I said, where did you learn that? And he said, from Houshamadyan. And Vahe has been continually helpful to me as I document what is left of our homeland. And many times you really have to dig beneath the surface to find things. But he has been very helpful as I have tread upon all of our soil, all the way from Gars and Ani to west to Gaiseri, with everywhere in between, Erzurum and Van and Mush and Bitlis and Agan and Arapkir and all those places. Vahe has been so helpful in bringing those to life and showing us what was, what is, and somehow connecting, keeping us connected to that and showing us who knows what somehow within us or otherwise could be. So thank you, Vahe.
Over here. The last video was wonderful. Thank you for that. It would be great to see that with like some VR or augmented reality if you ever connect with like a physical museum or something. Your website had under the Baghdad section pending information. I was wondering if you could share what we could expect for that.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of your question?
On the website, when you go to the map section and you click on for Baghdad, Iraq, it said that there's like pending information, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on what we could expect for that area pre-genocide.
Yeah, but I mean, for which region you mean? For
Baghdad. Baghdad.
Okay. Yes, until now we don't have any article. There are many geographical areas which are not covered until now. I mean, I said that there are already 25 geographical areas covered in the website, but many others no. Among them, Baghdad, Jerusalem, Konya, Izmir, Bursa. So these are very important places, but we don't have until now articles. Concerning Baghdad, for the moment, we don't have any project to write articles on Baghdad. But again, I will talk to you like now, like a, I don't know, like a businessman. And if there is funding for that, we can start to ask to our authors to write about Baghdad. Yeah, and so it also depends from about funding. But when we don't have any funding, so we prefer to work on places which are very available sources, primary sources. And Baghdad, it's much more difficult to find primary sources. Someone should very dig inside archives or books to find any information about Armenian life in Baghdad.
Yes, hi. 2 years ago, I went to visit, Western Armenia, and then I also visited Akshehir, where my mother comes from. And I had a hand-drawn map, so I was just, walking around to find my grandmother's house. And there were some men standing there, and they asked me, what are you looking for? I can't remember, or maybe I asked them, if they can help. And he was the mayor of Akshehir. I was like so, excited. And they were reconstructing the whole Armenian neighborhood. It was like big renovation going on. And one young person who works for the city hall, he says, don't worry, I'll take you around to all the Armenian houses and neighborhoods. And he was such a nice guy. He took us around to all the Armenian neighborhoods and the houses. And it was so funny. He said, and this is where your grandma used to play. I mean, how did he know where my grandma used to play? It was just, how do you know? I mean, what do you think, how they know where the Armenian kids used to play or whatever?
Of course.
Go to Turkey, they lie a lot. Just remember that. They want donations from you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I had a couple questions. Was wondering, first question, there are some books, some primary sources on Ottoman Armenians in Google Books that go back to the 19th century, early 20th century, and I was wondering if you've had a chance to look at those, if there's any interest in curating those on your website. And my second question, you couldn't hear the question?
I'm not hearing where your voice.
Oh.
Can you repeat the...
Yes. Yes, there are books from the 19th century and early 20th century already digitized by Google Books.
Yes.
And I was curious if you've had a chance to look at those and if there's any interest in curating those on your website. That was my first question. And the second question is, do you have any concerns, because this is on the internet, do you have any concerns about cyber attacks? And if so, do you have like a secure backup of this in case something were to happen?
Cyber attacks, yes, it could happen. Until now, never happened. We are protected, but nobody is really protected in this cyber world. And so, yes, we have taken some protections. We even pay extra fees for that, but yeah, everything can happen. But we also have every information on a separate hard disk or servers and these kind of things. And about books, no, as I said earlier, we don't really have the intention to become a place where people can read other books about Ottoman Armenians. We are using the information that we find in different books, and we are writing articles based on that information. So we are not really a library. Huh? We are a kind of academic or a kind of popular website where you can find new information. New information, based on the primary sources, but written by a new generation of authors. It's not the old generation that are reproducing here on the website. This is another perspective of the life of the Ottoman Armenians in Ottoman Empire.
It is an honor to be here, and I am certain that everyone here also feels the same way. I noticed on your website that you have translations aside from English, including Turkish and Armenian. I'm curious to know if you plan on expanding translations for the sake of using this as a universal platform.
Which language? Which language?
Spanish, potentially. I don't know. Just to make it accessible to worldwide.
we struggled to have the funding for the Turkish translation, which was our objective, the first objective after Armenian and English. And now, of course, if we fund, there will be available funding. We will continue with other languages. Spanish, French, German. We are in Germany, but we don't have we are based in Berlin, but we don't have a German version. Probably we should have also an Eastern Armenian with the other orthograph, this is also we don't have. So there are many other options that until are waiting for funding. Yeah.
Mr. Tachjian, can you put the home screen on, please? The first screen, the home screen. First of all, I'd like to say that it's really rather spectacular that you and your project have been able to turn on its head the conventional wisdom that everything from Western Armenia, from historic Armenia, was lost forever and never to be reclaimed and resurrected. And so this is not only a project, but this is a life mission and life service, and thanks doesn't come close enough. I'd like to offer a comment with an implicit suggestion in it, because the first line under Houshamadyan says it's a project to reconstruct Ottoman Armenian town and village life. So the implication with the question is, do we need the word Ottoman there? Perhaps a Western, perhaps a historic, perhaps another, maybe even Armenian name. I don't know if we need that adjective. And historiographically, I think a lot of this land, a lot of our people, a lot of our culture goes before the Ottoman period.
Mm-hmm. So the question why we use that Ottoman adjective? Huh?
With a suggestion.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
That's, I see that it's a big issue among I don't know, among Armenians to use that adjective, but I'm not seeing things from that perspective. Yeah? And I'm seeing that these are at the end Ottoman citizens, even when at the end they were massacred, they were destroyed, their lives were destroyed, but at the end they were Ottoman citizens. So they were sometimes, when you can study the history of the Armenians in the Ottoman Empire from the beginning until the end, and mostly when the Tanzimat period started in the beginning 19th century, you can see that when there was an opportunity for Armenian intellectuals, the main objective was to reinforce the state. And when reinforcing the state, that means also securing their own life in that state, their economic life, their social life, their cultural life. So sometimes they struggled, they battled for the Ottoman cause, for the Ottoman Empire development, for the Ottoman Empire cultural, political, and economic reforms. So at the end, in my opinion, still I consider them, my ancestors, as Ottoman citizens, even if at the end the story is different. But until that point, I mean until the catastrophe of 1915, they were considered as Ottoman citizens, as the Jews in Germany, or as Armenians in Lebanon, Armenians in we call them Lebanese Armenians, we call them I don't know Georgian Armenians, but at the end we can use these words. But the problem is when it comes to the Ottoman Empire, yeah, I see that things are I understand why, the reasons I understand why, but personally, I don't agree with this kind of thesis that we should not use this adjective. No, I will put it differently, my answer. This is another purpose of the project, to show that how rich was Armenian life in the Ottoman Empire, and to show that the genocide itself was an act against the state itself. I mean, organized by a state, but it was against like a suicide, like an act of suicide against the state. So when you destroy one of the most richest and most developed component of your society, that means that you are also organizing a massacre, a crime against the state itself. So this is why, or this is not the main reason, but to show, to display the richness of the life of the Ottoman Armenians is also one of the reasons that it's a message also addressed to the present-day Turkish society.
Hello. My question is regarding the educational usage of Houshamadyan. So regarding, has Houshamadyan ever connected with educational organizations or institutions? Have you considered connecting to these types of organizations in the future in order to make this content available to teachers and students?
We had a funding for that from the Gulbenkian Foundation, and so we had funding for two projects. One is for the Turkish translation, and the other was the cooperation with Armenian schools. The idea was to start to work with Armenian school children in different schools in different parts of the world, and to ask them to bring materials from their own homes, own families or neighbors, and to reconstruct their family histories, and then the idea was to publish this kind of pages or this kind of materials on the website. We started this way, but I don't know, it's maybe it's not, there are some passivity from our side, but we also noticed some passivity from the teachers themselves. Yeah, it was really difficult with some schools to cooperate, and because this is something which is also besides their everyday teachings. So when you ask them to cooperate with an association outside their current curriculum, sometimes they show some passivity. So we don't have a really positive cooperation with different schools. Sometimes it was very good, like I can say schools, for example, in Istanbul. We work with them, and we publish some pages, very beautiful pages and beautiful family stories from school children. They prepared these pages, but with some others, yeah, the cooperation was not so much positive.
So if you'd like to support Houshamadyan, I have some flyers that I can pass by that gives more information about the organization. And you can see Vahe, and if you have anything that you would like to share, he's here until end of next week. He'll be going tomorrow and we'll be coming back on Thursday. But Friday, Saturday, and then part of Sunday, he's available if you'd like to share life stories or information that you would like to pass on so he can continue his mission. We do have a light reception downstairs. Everyone is welcome. Thank you.
Al şunu.